Alright, welcome to the grinder deep cleaning video. We're cleaning our ANFIM Espresso grinder today. First, you're going to pull your machine forward. Don't worry about turning it off. I shouldn't have done that. You're going to remove your nuts that attach the hopper to the grinder body so that you can pull your hopper off. We're going to grab a large container of sorts so that we can empty our espresso beans into the container so that we can empty the hopper and clean it from the inside. A lot of oil builds up inside the hopper over the course of a week if you do this deep clean every week, which I recommend. So you're going to take your microfiber towel and just wipe it down on the inside. You can also steam inside to get it a little wet to further polish it. However, just make sure that you dry it up completely so there's no leftover water. This is going to remove any coffee residue, oils, or dust. And before removing it, you're going to want to note where that red tab is on your dial so you can get back to that same dial in. Now we're going to pour some grinds into our grinder and we're going to start to purge them. Make sure you cover the grinder here so that nothing escapes. Do not stick your fingers in there, but flat hand over the top of the grinder and purge out the grinds. The grinds act to soak up any coffee oils. You can take a little pokey thing to disturb the spring that's inside the chute and further purge more of the grinds and coffee oil. This is a pre-deep clean thing. If you can only get to the grinds purge, that's totally fine. The little red tab that's there does not need to come off. Do not remove that red tab. We are only going to remove this dial thing here. The first screw I removed is a longer screw that sits on top of it. The second one is shorter. It sits down below. They need to go in those exact spots each time. Never lose your screws or nuts and bolts. To do this, you need to keep them in a tiny little safety cup that you'll see at the top of the screen here. Everything lives in there so that you will never lose it because pieces like that are hard to find. Next, we're going to be very careful when touching our little tab here so we don't disturb it. If this guy moves, you risk adjusting the accuracy of your dial, so keep that intact and do not take it off. Next, we're going to use our flathead screwdriver to remove our bottom burrs. These little guys are short and stubby little screws. There's 3 of them on this one and 3 on the top one. Be very careful when you're unscrewing them. You don't want to use the flathead screwdriver too hard and scratch your burr, risk scratching your burr. So just be very intentional with what you're doing while you're doing this part. Burrs can cost upwards of $400 a set. So damage to them is really irritating, especially if it's something preventable like being careful with your screwdriver. The bottom burr is disgusting, so we're going to take a little bamboo stir stick, or at least something that's flat and non-abrasive, and just kind of use it to help get out any gunk from any of the crevices. We're going to use our brush and kind of brush it off pretty aggressively. Next, we're going to do the same thing with the top burr that goes on the bottom of the gold plate here. I keep the burrs where I got them from, so I will not mix my bottom burr and my top burr and readjust their placements. I keep them on the same thing every single time, just in case it really does affect anything. You know that you're putting it back together the same way each time. Again, we've removed our screws and we've put them in a little tiny safety cup. I'm aggressively brushing this guy nice and clean. The coffee oils here really do like to stick inside all the crevices, so that's why the bamboo stir stick is a tool here. Using your brush to brush away anything and make sure everything looks good. I also give the outside, around the burrs, a nice wipe, sometimes just with my thumb, because it will get a little bit gunky too. Nice and clean. Heck yeah, we love a clean burr. Brush down the bottom of our gold plate. Around the edges, the threads here can also get kind of gunky, so I just use the brush everywhere I can. Always brush your grinds onto the floor so you can sweep them up later. Next, we're going to reattach our our top burr onto the bottom of our gold plate. Using the 3 screws, I kind of brushed the screw off a little bit. I feel that if you clean the screw before you put it back in, you're probably protecting the threads over time. It's also just easier and keeps everything else clean. So carefully brush those. We're gonna not really tighten them all the way until we have all 3 of them in. I like to make sure they are centered within the holes that you're screwing them into and then go through and tighten them. When you're tightening equipment and tightening screws onto equipment, make sure you're not tightening them so that no one else in the world can ever remove them again. It makes it really difficult to maintain stuff like this when you can barely unscrew something. So always to tightness so it doesn't come off, but never to tightness so that no one else can get it off. Our top plate is done, so we're going to go ahead and take apart the chute and clean inside. The chute has a spring in the center. That guy holds a lot of espresso dust from our grinds. We're going to take him out and we're going to clean him through. He's what distributes our espresso when it grinds. So it's very important to keep him clean and unclogged. The 2 screws I'm pulling out here are the same length. They're different from the top screws that go into the little dial turning knob thing. So keep in mind that they are different and don't mix them up. Whoa, now we're pulling out the spring and so much stuff is released. We're going to use a hand vacuum to vacuum up any mess. Get really up in there all around the corners and crevices of the chute. There's definitely going to be some gunky coffee in there. Then we're going to vacuum inside our espresso body. This is right below where the bottom burr goes. So we're going to make sure that's super clean. There are 3 posts surrounding this little thing here. Those guys also hold a lot of gunky coffee. So we're going to take our bamboo stir stick, take our brush, clean the top off. That's so satisfying, all that dust. We're going to take our bamboo stir stick and just kind of like pick at the posts so we can dislodge any of that gunk. It's on the sides, it's on the tops. It's pretty gross. The threads around the center here as well will get kind of gunky. So after I've vacuumed, again, I'll give it a little wipe in there as well with a microfiber towel and just kind of further dislodge everything as much as I can. Turn your vacuum on, vacuum what you can, get it all cleaned up in there. This is important to do because coffee oils and coffee residue, it will affect the taste of your coffee, and you want a clean tasting cup every single time if you can. So a weekly deep clean is necessary. Look at all that. That's just from the threads of the machine. So yikes. This is after weeks cleaning. So it does get dirty. It is worth it. If you've never done this, you should start yesterday. Next, we're going to dust down our chute. This one's kind of weird to clean. You can't really fit anything up there to clean inside of it, so don't worry too much about it. One thing you'll never do is run any of this stuff through water. Never put it in a sink, never put it in a dishwasher. It will destroy it over time. So always use dry stuff, never wet stuff. Dry towels, dry brushes. Next, we're going to clean our spring. This does get a lot of gunk built up on it as well. We're going to reassemble our spring and chute. The spring has these 2 little ears that kind of fit in the sockets where the screws go, so make sure those are aligned up. It'll be very easy to put them in like that, and very difficult if you're putting it in wrong. So make sure they're aligned up. I'm brushing off my screws here just before I reattach the chute. Lining them up. I, again, don't tighten them until they're both in because it's just easier that way. Then I take time to tighten both of them. Again, not so tight that you can't get it undone. Nice. And then give it a dust along the body. Make sure it's nice and clean on the front. And at this point, we're going to rebuild our burrs. So we're going to set the bottom burr back down. Again, same as on the top burr on the gold plate, we're going to align it on the holes, brush our little screws off, and then kind of lightly put them in. But we're going to make sure they're all centered on the hole where we're screwing in so that everything is straight up. Nice and tight, but nothing crazy. Then we're going to put our gold plate back on, and you're just going to screw it all the way, carefully using that little red tab. You don't want to bend it. It's easy to break, and you're just going to screw it until it stops tightening. Then you're going to adjust it back to where you reckon it was set before. We're going to attach our little knobby turny thing, and it kind of sits within the gears there. The longer screw goes on top on the left, shorter screw goes on the bottom on the right, and just testing that it does move it. Nice. Make sure it's tight. Then we're going to reattach our hopper. This is where we'll adjust our grind setting to make sure it's back where we started, because we took note of that in the beginning. And then we're going to take our little nuts and put them back on the hopper to secure it to the body of the espresso grinder. There are 3 of them. Again, these you do not want to tighten too much, because trying to remove these is difficult, and that's a good way to lose them. Then we're going to pour our espresso beans back in, open up our chute, top our hopper up with Side Hustle Espresso by Grit Coffee. Always fill your hoppers up. It's a good resetting practice. It's also a good espresso practice, because espresso tastes better when the hopper is full. Reseal your bag. Then we're going to put our lid on top, give it a little wipe down. It gets kind of dusty. And we're going to wipe down the body of our machine. There's usually a lot of dust buildup here. Wipe down underneath as well, the counter. Look at that. Got the filters. Everything's dusted. Looks so shiny and new. This is regular maintenance. You should do this every single week. Turn your espresso back on, and then we're going to redial in. So after all of that, our espresso is going to run a little bit differently. So after you deep clean a grinder, you need to make sure you're dialing it in just like you would in the morning. It's kind of a 2-part day of dialing in. But this is just to account for all of the adjustments that can be made after removing any of the espresso gunk that may be either holding up your espresso or making it taste different. So we're just going to redial it in. Before you do all of this, it is a good idea to grind out a couple shots worth, so that you can still make drinks while it's happening. So you don't have to put closed on espresso while this is going on. You can just manually fill up your portafilter using the scale to get the correct dosage. So always grind out a couple shots worth so you can continue to make drinks. So hopefully this one tastes good, and if not, I'll make the necessary adjustments. Cheers!